Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Crypto News Podcast. We are buzzing. As always, it's your host, Matt Zahab, still coming in hot from the one and only Mexico. And I am a little more pumped than usual for today's pod. I've had the pleasure to meet this lad in person. We have the one and only, and we'll get to him in a second. We have the shortest man on crypto Twitter on the show today, the king of retail trading. You might know him as the Sultan of Solana or the Chief Bonk Officer. His takes are hot and he brings the thunder, but when he parties, he's a one-beer wonder. A professional degen who pulls straight tens. Without further ado, I'm very pleased to welcome the king of crypto Twitter, Zion, aka Z, aka Ansem, aka BLK Noise, to the Crypto News Podcast. Z, welcome to the show, my friend. How you doing?
What's good, Brody? How you doing, man? Thanks for having me on.
Pumped to have you, man. It was a treat meeting you back in, what was that, end of July, early August of this year at Blockchain Futurist in Toronto. Shout out Tracy Leporullo and the whole Untraceable team. That was a banger of a conference. And I feel like one of the things you always get when people meet you in person is your height. Like I just knew you from crypto Twitter. I just knew you from, thankfully making me some bags. Shout out to you. And then I meet you in person. I'm like, damn, this guy's tall. What's it like when people, one, recognize you on the streets and be like, yo, are you Ansem? Are you BLK Noise? And like, what are some of the few first things they comment on every time they see you?
Well, yeah, every time they're like, dude, you're tall. I didn't know you was tall. Like, I knew you were tall, but I didn't know you were this tall. So that happens every single time. But it's been funny, man. Like the past, I guess 2 years now, like my account before the last bull run was only like 3 to 5K followers. So I really didn't have that much, but I was always posting crypto shit. And then I did well that cycle. And a lot of people that tailed me on some trades, just like I kept getting more and more followers. And then 2022 is when I went to, actually it was an Avalanche conference. I was like 100K followers. I was like, fuck it, I gotta go somewhere. I gotta go on vacation. I've been trading nonstop for like 12 months. Fuck it, I'm gonna go to the Barcelona for the AVAX conference. And that was the first time where anybody in person recognized me from Twitter. It was like,
Yeah,
yo, you're Ansem. I was like, this shit is weird. Like I'm walking around the conference and people are coming up to me like, yo, can I take a picture with you? Like, yo, you're Ansem on Twitter. Like, yo, you made me so much money. Like, yo, what's good? What's good? So that caught me off guard. I didn't expect that to happen. Like it never really translates in your head how much like having followers online can actually be real people in real life. So that was the first time. At that point, I was like really like caught off guard. But since then, it's been pretty cool. Like it's getting more and more frequent now. I don't know, because I've just been active on Twitter, so people see my face and my Abby a lot more. But
it's wild,
cool.
man. It's
people ask
crazy.
me like, bro, you're tall, and they're like, dude, okay, I made money off this, and they're like, what's the next coin to buy? Like, what do I buy next?
Of course. Everyone wants you to pad their bags. Did 12-year-old Z in, I guess you would have been grade 6 or grade 7, dunking on kids in the schoolyard, flirting with little young girls, did you ever think that you'd be, one, Twitter famous, and two, have the ability to literally move markets? Like that's got to be something wild that you can tweet out a coin and after you make a tweet, like the price rises. Like that's gotta be some crazy shit right there.
I never even thought about trading really when I was younger. I was always good at math and science. Like that was what I was good at in school growing up. And I was like, I'm gonna do engineering. So I did engineering for college. I went to Georgia Tech and I started studying computer science. But I didn't really learn about crypto until like senior year. That's why I learned about Bitcoin. And then when I graduated is when I picked up trading. But yeah, dude, like that cycle. So a lot of people do like post their public ideas on Twitter, and a lot of people do like the blogs and everything. It's typically the VC guys though that are writing all their 100%. Thoughts on the market. So they're writing out their theses, and it's like what they think about this, what they think about that, what they think is going to happen for the next year. But it's not really that often that you have just like regular retail people writing out coherent like long pieces on the market. Yeah. And I started doing that in like late 2021 because I had my trade journal, which is Consem, and it only had like 100 or so followers on there, and I was tweeting out all my trades. So it was just my journal. I was like, what I'm looking at this month, what my core bags are, what I'm looking at for the next month, what did I fuck up on, what did I do wrong, what did I do right, and I would just do it every week. And a lot of people were like, yo, you need to share this with more people. Like, this is really helping me trade. Like, it's not like you're claiming to be right all the time, but your thought process is helping me grow as a trader. So when I was doing that in I was like late 2021, that's when I started writing Substack. Somebody was like, dude, make a blog, like write a longer form blog.
Those were fire when those first came out. Like it was easy because like when a lot of the VCs write their theses, it's long, it's a lot of big paragraphs. Yours was like point form, almost like an elongated tweet, It was just like, it was a little bit more than a tweet, very easily digestible.
Yeah, because it was really an extension of my trade journal. And that was basically like point form, like a little bit of thesis, but it was in tweet format. So it was easy for people to read before. And I was like, let me just make this a little bit longer. But yeah, so I shared it on Ansem, and then somebody reposted it on like their public Twitter and was like, yo, like Z just posted this on his trade journal. Like, people read this. It like blew up a ton. I was like, fuck it, I'll just repost it from my main account. I don't know how many followers I had then. It wasn't at 100K yet, but I just reposted on main and was like, got a ton of engagement. My Substack went crazy. So I was like, fuck it, I guess I got to keep writing the
keep
Substacks.
Going. Train left the station.
Yeah. So after that, I wrote like some more, and I had some VC guys that I met just from Twitter. I'm like, yeah, dude, like our funds are reading what you write about the market. So I never really expected it to happen. I was just sharing my trade journal because I needed somewhere to put it. And I was like, if it's online, I can look back at it and see like where I fucked up at. And I still have that entire tweet thread. It's like almost 18 months long where I was like, every month, this is what I'm looking at. This is what I'm trading. Like, so that's how that happened.
So cool to see, man. I mean, there's so many different angles we can take this. I think we have to go present day, give the listeners some absolute gold here. And that is good old Solana. You have been pumping the shit out of it is the wrong word, but I love on Twitter when people chirp you and they're like, oh, Sol's rising and now Z's like, telling it. Like, no. When I met you for the first time in the summer, when I was like, yo, dude, pleasure to meet you. Thanks for making me a little coin. You're in my city right now. Let me take you out. Let me show you the good bars. We went to Paris, Texas, absolute talent factory for those in Toronto who know what I'm talking about too. That's when you first told me about Sol. Give us the TLDR on Sol. Why are you so bullish on it? Tell us about your thesis on it. And I'd love if you could sort of reiterate a couple of the things you told me back in late July, early August when we first met.
Yeah, man. So Solana has always been interesting to me, even when I like early last cycle. So I bought it super low, like I think it was like $1.50 or something. But the reason I was looking for that trade was because I missed the first chunk of DeFi summer. So like early 2020, I was actually watching my daughter. She was like young. I wasn't really trading all that much. Early 2020, and then COVID happened, and I was short Boeing into that COVID crash. Like, dude, if this shit spreads to New York,
yeah, oh yeah,
all the airlines are fucked. So I'm like, I gotta get short airlines. Nobody like we're like way ahead. So I made some money off that. And I was still on crypto Twitter, but not like actively trading how I was my first cycle. Started looking at stuff and I started learning about DeFi summer. I was like looking at the Aave chart. And I was like, what the fuck? How did I miss a fucking whatever it was, 50x from the bottom?
That's
literally. Yeah, I started trading on Uniswap. That was when like I was with Jeremy and crew trading in CTOM. But yeah, so I traded on Uniswap and I was like, that was when ETH gas fees started spiking. And I was like, how the fuck is anybody gonna be able to trade?
Yeah, unsustainable.
on these markets if gas fees are this expensive for everybody. So in my head, I'm like, well, if these alt L1s come up with some alternative where it's like cheaper and faster for people to trade, they're gonna fucking rip. So that's when I found Solana and I found SBF. And I was like, well, this dude is backing this. And a ton of other people were like smart on it and was like, yeah, this is one of the options that could be differentiated from ETH. So that was the original thesis. It was just like another L1 where like DeFi could be more performant. I read up on Anatoly. Like I was like, this dude's super smart. Listened to all of his podcasts. His background is like a engineer at Qualcomm, I think it was. He was like really good with distributed systems. I was reading up on him and like so on. I was like, okay, this makes sense. So I bought it like $1.50. I was like, oh, whatever. And then it outperformed a ton of stuff in early 2021. And then basically for like the rest of the year, it was just fucking ripping. Like it outperformed basically on every pullback. That and Rune were ripping really hard, but it didn't really have any apps on it. So back then there was just Radium, and we had Solid, the wallet, and not really that many other applications. So NFTs didn't pop off on Solana until late that year. And there weren't really that many use cases where it like made sense. It was proving what Solana was made for, like why it was important. So that was back then. Tracked it from like 150, like close to 200. Ended up selling it just based off of TA, like somewhat close to the top, and just kept up to date with the entire ecosystem. So in late 2022 is when I went to Breakpoint. And at Breakpoint, I talked to a lot of the Solana founders and teams. And there was just a lot more activity in the ecosystem then than there was in early 2021. And I was like, well, if we have another cycle or next cycle, this is probably going to be like we'll do way better than it did last cycle, because now there's a lot more actual like real activity on chain. In 2021, they had some issues with like congestion because the
down
fees
all the time.
It was down. It went down a few times because people were spamming the NFT mints when they happened, and there was no mechanism for like guarding against that spam because every transaction was basically free. So after that happened, they had to make a few upgrades to the chain, and in mid 2022, they pushed those through, and that was like the priority fees. So that's like if you want to spam transactions on a hotspot of Solana's state, you're gonna have to pay more to get your transactions through, which already exists on ETH by default. But the important thing on Solana is like when that happens, it only happens in one area of the state. So like the rest of the applications on Solana aren't affected because there's parallelized transactions instead of sequential transactions on Ethereum. You can have multiple things happening in parallel that aren't touching the same area of Solana state, which is why it's so much, one of the reasons why it's so much more performant than ETH. But yeah, generally I was like, dude, there's way more teams now. It's the same thesis. They've upgraded the chain to get rid of some of the issues that they had prior to in 2021. And then it got crushed by FTX. So FTX is like, it was at 38. I remember I was at Breakpoint. They announced their partnership with Google Cloud, and price was at like 38, like $39. I was like, oh yeah, this looks good. It's about to break out. And then we get on a plane back to the US.
Sub 10, right?
and fucking FTX happened, and that shit sold off like 80% in a week. Went literally to $8. So after that happened, and then I was like, the recovery early that year, I was like, dude, this is way, 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 way mispriced, because at Breakpoint, nobody was talking about SBF. Nobody cared about him. It was like we were focused on building for the chain in the future, like in crypto. And nobody was really concerned with him. So I was like, this price dislocation is going to fix itself eventually whenever we have a bull market. So I was like, you have a combination of things where the sentiment was super low on the chain, but the progress that they'd made technicals wise and also team wise, developer activity wise, were on the opposite side. So it was a combination of those two things why I thought it was like a really good trade. And then comparably, if you know what happened with DeFi summer, I missed the first DeFi summer on ETH. So I was like, I mean, I still got the Uniswap airdrop because I was active enough, but I wasn't early to like, what was it? Like the yield for like Wi-Fi missed, like that farming, like farming on Compound, I miss.
Yeah, I missed all those too.
Yeah, dude, like all those early protocols, I missed them. And I'm like, now we have on Solana all these DeFi teams that don't have tokens. They've been building for the past year and a half. They're like very active, very active at all the hackathons, active on Twitter, active at Breakpoint, talking to people. And I was like, well, if Solana's going to have a resurgence, I'm assuming all these DeFi teams are going to end up dropping tokens eventually. And they're probably going to drop these tokens to all the people who have been like diehard Solana community members,
baby. Yep,
the entire time. Exactly. And using their protocols while everybody's like, no, Solana's dead. So in my head, I'm like, this is like obvious trade. Even if you're sitting in Solana spot and I don't know how long it was going to take. I remember I was like, I don't know if it's going to happen next year, or like 6 months, like whatever, 9 months. But in that time period, the longer that you're farming all of these protocols, the longer that happens and nobody is paying attention, you're like so far ahead of everybody else. So if a DeFi summer happens on Solana, you're gonna fucking print.
Z, let me jump in here. You gotta give some gold to the listeners. So assume that Solana summer is not over, and you and I are in the same yacht here. I don't think it is. We got a lot of people tuning in right now who follow you on Twitter, and they're gonna want to be like, "Yo, Z, how can I actually make this happen?" I'd love if you could give your workflow. We'll use USA for an example. Let's say we're talking about going USD, onboarding USD onto a tier 1 exchange like Coinbase. And then what are the best protocols, practices, exchanges, bridges, you name it? How would you tell people to go from USD to Sol to then farming on all of these different protocols, buying shitcoins, blah, blah, blah? Give us the workflow there.
Got you. Yeah, if you have USD, so if you have a Coinbase account or whatever other exchange that you're on, you can buy Solana on there. And then there you can, if you have you can set up either a Phantom wallet or a Backpack wallet. Those are like two of the main wallets on Solana. You're gonna have to write down, obviously you're gonna have to write down your seed phrase, make sure you store it somewhere or in multiple places. Don't lose that. And then you'll get a public address with your Solana address. So you're gonna send your Solana from Coinbase to your wallet. And then once you have that, you can interact with all of the different protocols on Solana. So lending and borrowing, which is basically the equivalent of Aave on ETH, is called Marginfi. And they're currently doing a points program. It's not confirmed whether they'll have a token or not, but if they do, you probably will benefit from farming those points. One of the biggest liquid staking protocols, which is Jito Sol, just did their airdrop actually today. So people who farmed that like got a nice airdrop. It's coming in. I think it was like close to like 1 billion FDV. So similar to like Lido and Flashbots on ETH because they also do MEV. And then what else? Like Jupiter, that's the main aggregator. So it aggregates swaps across all the different dexes on Solana, and they also just it's enabled perps. So that's actually a pretty big one. I think Jupiter is going to be pretty significant. The first airdrop already got announced, but they're going to do it in multiple rounds. So even if you miss the first one, you still have like possibility to get the further ones, and that's just from volume on Jupiter. The good thing about these Solana airdrops is it doesn't cost a lot to test out all these protocols because the chain is so cheap to use.
It's very cheap.
As I was trying to tell people all year, like it's just a time thing, really. If you have $100, you can't do a ton of transactions on ETH when the chain is congested. Like right now, the chain it's like $40 per swap on Uniswap. But on Solana, you can literally test out every single protocol on the chain, and all you need is time. You just have to be active and doing it before everybody else is. So Marginfi, Jupiter, Jito just did theirs. Piff just did their airdrop. They're like probably like the Oracle for Sol, like comparable to Chainlink. A lot of the perp dexes don't have tokens yet also. So that's like Drift Protocol, Zeta Markets, all of those also don't have tokens. So like if literally you're just active on Sol, like say you have like $100, $50 maybe you put in Jito Sol, deposit that in Marginfi. So now you're getting points there. Other $50 maybe you're trading on Drift or Zeta, whatever else. It's like it's the same thing whether you have 100 or 1,000 or 10,000. And you can spread across all those different protocols. And then there's Camino, which is like yield farming with LP pools. And there's also Meteora, which is similar, like AMM, and also like liquidity pools. So there's a few different things you can do. I think the Tensor is another good one. Tensor is the NFT exchange. So it's like similar to Blur on ETH. You can trade NFTs. And they have these like Tensorians, like which is their NFT collection. You can stake them and get points, and also trade on the exchange and get points. I think Tensor is actually going to be a pretty big one because Blur is massive, and they basically killed OpenSea. So if you assume that Tensor is also the number one NFT exchange on Solana, and you think Solana is going to do really well this cycle, then it's like, okay, you're mapping valuations between the biggest protocols on Sol and the biggest protocols on ETH and what that's going to look like. So
yeah, that was Alpha City there, Population Us. Another thing we got to talk about on Sol is Bonk. That has been insane. You called Bonk a couple months ago. This has been absolute bananas. And again, folks, before we get into Bonk, I'm just going to reiterate what Z said here. Open up a Coinbase account, throw in some USD, open up a Phantom wallet. It's similar to MetaMask. It's a Chrome extension. It is the purple little ghost looking dude. transfer your soul to that. As he said, make sure you write down your seed phrase, keep that in multiple places. Do not put that in your notes on your iPhone or anything else. Write that on paper, maybe give it to one person you love and trust, and make sure you keep that very, very close to the heart and somewhere in some place that you trust. So that is realistically the workflow. And then check out the show notes and get on Marginfi, Jupiter, Drift, Zeta Markets, and everything else that Z just mentioned. But let's get into shitcoins here. How the hell did you find Bonk? Was this just like a Twitter madness? Did you get tipped off? Like, give me the TLDR. What was the official story on Bonk? And are you still bullish on it after it's gone up like multiple 1,000% over the last couple months?
Yeah, it's fucking ripping, bro. But yeah, so Bonk's a meme coin on Solana, kind of like Doge is on ETH. But Bonk is cool because it launched at the very, very, very pico lows of Sol. Like when Sol was around $10 or $8 or whatever it was. And it was Christmas of 2022. And some of the biggest guys on Solana, like developers, I don't know if it was VCs. I think some VCs were involved, but like basically a team of people on Solana launched a meme coin, and they airdropped it to a lot of Solana developers, like active traders. So airdropped a good bit of the supply, launched in December of 2022, and it fucking ripped. It went to like 400 mil, 500 mil, whatever market cap. And that was rare for Solana, but also rare because everybody thought Solana was dead at the time. So they launched Bonk, and I was like, fuck, okay, these alts on Solana aren't fully dead. And that was December 2022. So this entire year, it's basically been chopped down, basically sideways, but it's the same thing that happens with Doge. So if you look at the Doge chart, it really only goes vertical for very short periods of time. And the rest of the time, it's just chilling. But it's like whenever retail comes back or like bull markets come back, people start buying Doge again. Like, oh, crypto's back. I'm going to buy Doge. It's the cheapest coin. I can get whatever, a million of it, like whatever. So Doge always like pumps before altcoin cycles. And last bull cycle, we had the same thing happen across all these different chains where it was like there's a meme coin in every chain, just like there was a meme coin on the ETH. So last cycle was really, I think, the biggest one. We had DeFi, but then we also had this like bridging meta where it was like, okay, I'm going to bridge this L1. I'm going to buy the DEX, buy the meme coin. I'm going to like buy whatever lending borrowing protocol and test everything out. Like, so like high risk, high reward type thing. But the meme coins are always funny because it's kind of like representative of the culture of a chain, similar to NFTs. And like people usually punt a small percentage of their core, whatever, core ETH or core, whatever, Sol holdings into it. But it's funny because this stuff can go vertical. As we saw with Doge last cycle, nobody expected that shit to go to fucking 70 bill market cap or whatever ridiculous number it went to. But it did because it was just like retail buying in crypto. So Bonk started moving right after Sol, I think, broke out.
No. Bonk started moving after you started tweeting about it. Like no one ever even heard of that. That was 100% you. No one ever even heard of Bonk.
That wasn't me, man. Nah. I didn't buy the bottom of Bonk. I really didn't. Because I saw it moving and I knew what it was. I was focused on the Sol breakout. I'm like, I'm okay, farming all these DeFi protocols. I know Sol eventually when it breaks that whatever 25, 27, whatever that level range high was, I knew it was gonna fly. And it broke out, and then I saw Bonk moving. I was like, oh shit. Well, I know it's gonna be the beta to Solana because there's no other alts on the chain. At that point, it was just Bonk and maybe like whatever, Marinade, a few other ones, like older, like Hero, a few other Solana alts, but really it was just Bonk. And I'm like, well, how are people going to get beta to Sol? I know what happens with the meme coins when people bridge over. They're like, I'll buy Solana and I'm going to buy whatever the meme coin is. Yeah. You can't buy anything else. So it's like, I know it's going to be reflexive in that way. And then you also have that pattern matching where people saw Doge and SHIB go to whatever multi-billion dollar. I think SHIB went to 40 billion. That's so wild. Yeah, I'm like, well, if people are bridging over to Sol, they're going to be buying Bonk. And it was already listed on some major exchanges like Bybit. So that's like the general thesis. The meme coins is always pump on the chain that gets more attention and activity. But I don't know. I don't know. I think it's gonna rally into end of the year. It's already up a ton. Like I got some of my boys to buy it.
It's up like, another 10 ticks today too. Like it just
it's up like 25% today. But yeah, I think it's gonna go multi-billion. What I think is going to happen is probably something similar to Doge. So Doge went from like 700 mil to 10 bill. I don't know if it's going to go to 10 bill, but then it went sideways for like 2-3 months. And then in April, it pumped again and had like
Yeah.
a second wind rally when people thought it was done already. So I think similarly, if you have Solana do really well this cycle, it breaks all-time high. Maybe Bonk tops out this month or in January, but it goes sideways, and you still see Solana doing well. So activity increases, whatever, TVL increases. People start using these DeFi protocols who have tokens now, and you just get more influx of attention to the chain. And Bonk doesn't die out. I don't think it will, but you'll probably get a second like rally at some point next year is kind of what I'm thinking. But yeah, I'm thinking sometime like towards the end of this year or January is when you rotate your whatever 10x you're up on Bonk back in the Sol.
Yeah, chill it in Sol for a bit. I love that. Let's jump into Cosmos. You also have a really good thesis on Cosmos. I mean, I got into Cosmos. Adam also got into Near. Shout out Near, wearing the Near shirt. Shout out the Near team. Got into both of those guys, I want to say mid to late 2021. I think that's when I think I got in just a little bit before you started really tweeting about it as well. But I understand you're still very bullish on both those. We've had some incredible guests on the show from the Cosmos ecosystem. A lot of room to grow there. Give us the 2 cents, give us the elevator pitch on Cosmos and why it has so much room to grow and why it has such a high ceiling.
Yeah. Cosmos is interesting because they are usually first to a lot of like ideas in crypto, like how to do things. Like they're the first to proof of stake before ETH switched to proof of stake. The general idea on having like application specific, well, they have application specific chains with their idea, but that idea where you're separating execution into what like specific things that you need to do, kind of similarly to how we're now ETH is like on the roll up roadmap. We're going to have to have like certain roll ups that you want to do certain things on, so we're not congesting the main chain. Cosmos is cool because they never get a lot of attention on the BD side of things. They really only care about the tech side of things. They build it out things the right way. So like the Cosmos SDK, which is the SDK for making your own chain on app chain, it's very customizable to whatever you like, the tailor needs you need specifically for your chain. Like Say is one of the newer Cosmos chains that launched, and they were able to implement like parallelized transactions as well as tweaking Cosmos consensus in a way that time to finality is a lot quicker than a lot of the other chains. But
yeah,
that's like one of the cooler projects. Say they're like trying to be similar with the speed and cheap like fees as Sol is, and not like a purely EVM chain. But I think the biggest narrative for Cosmos this cycle is going to be the modular one. So Celestia, which is like one of the best projects that's launched this year, has done well. It's like a 5x up from what it launched at, like 2 to 10. But they're purely focused on being the first modular data availability layer. So when you have rollups, you need to post your data to some chain, and then you need to settle your proofs on another chain or the same chain. So what Celestia's goal is to be the cheapest way to post that data for rollups, and then you'll settle on either ETH or another settlement layer. And the guy, whatever his name is, Adler, was the dude who wrote the first paper on optimistic rollups. And he's like one of the founders of Celestia. So him and Mustafa, super smart guys, but are trying to do things the right way in crypto, technicals wise, but also being focused on like what makes the most sense long term. Because I think with the modular thesis is the reason that ETH is pivoting to being like a settlement and DA layer is because you literally don't have the option of doing everything on ETH mainnet. Like it's just not possible. You only do like 10 to 13 TPS. So you have to use rollups to push all the execution off chain. It's the only way it's going to survive long term. But if you were to design a system from the ground up, you would probably do it in a way similar to how Celestia is designed, where you have one like chain specifically focused on DA, one chain specifically focused on settlement, and then maybe you have different rollups that have like their own application specific needs, which is really how they're thinking about things. It's like you're going to have a ton of different rollups. Some are generalizable, some are application specific, but they're going to use Celestia for DA because it's cheaper than what it currently is on ETH and other chains. And then that's their like go to market there. So I think Cosmos is in an interesting position because similarly to Solana, where the sentiment is super poor, but you have all this technical innovation happening underneath behind the
building.
scenes. Everybody's constantly building. It's similar in that way. And Injective is another team that's done really well this year. Actually been like leading the market, but there's a ton of different projects in the Cosmos ecosystem that just don't get a lot of love because it's very hard to rally people around an ecosystem when you don't have one coin that's representative of the entire thing. So like the ETH community is super strong because it's just, we're trying to drive as much value back to ETH as possible. It's a very simple thesis to get people all rallied around. But with Cosmos, it's like, is it Atom? Is it this other Cosmos chain?
Exactly. But that's one of your that's one of your theses you had a while ago, which was because Cosmos is so B2B focused, right? It's a lot of like back end stuff that really moves the needle. It's different where you got a lot of forward consumer facing products on ETH. And then furthermore, I believe you also said, don't just throw dineros, don't just throw cake at Atom, throw it at the things that are building with Atom and on the Cosmos ecosystem. So
exactly, like it's very different from ETH, where it's like if I'm bullish ETH and rollups, I want to buy ETH. But like Atom is not. It's not as simple as just buy Atom. You get exposure to all the Cosmos ecosystem. There's a ton of different teams over there building some cool stuff. Like Sommelier is another cool team. They're kind of similar to Yearn on ETH, where they have like these different farming strategies for yield, and they're also cross-chain. So they have some strategies on ETH and some strategies, I think, in the Cosmos. But that's another really smart team. There's a ton of cool stuff happening in Cosmos. Like there's a lot of chains that haven't even launched yet that are still pre-mainnet that are also coming out next year. And some of those will be interesting also. But it's definitely an area where if you're early to it and paying attention, it's like one of those other spots where it's like you're ahead of everybody else.
100%.
Yeah, exactly.
Z, you're on a roll. We got to take a quick break here, mate. Huge shout out to our sponsor of the show, Prime XBT. Everyone loves Prime XBT as they offer a robust trading system for both beginners and professional traders that demand highly reliable market data and performance. It doesn't matter if you're a rookie or a vet, you can easily design and customize your layouts and widgets to best fit your trading style. Prime XBT is also running an exclusive promo for listeners of the Crypto News pod. The promo code is CryptoNews50. That's CryptoNews50 to receive 50% of your deposit credited to your trading account. Again, that is CryptoNews50 to receive 50% of your deposit credited to your trading account. And now back to the show with Z. Z, let's get into some of your trading strategies and capital allocation. How the heck do you look forward, whether it's a 3-month, 6-month, 12-month cycle? Give us some of your workflows. Give us some of the secret sauce here. You always talk about capital allocation and how people are always rotating bags, different trends, different hypotheses. Like, how do you, and again, you've obviously had many, many kicks at the can. You've put your 10,000 hours in. I mean, when I met you in person, you were telling me you're like a friggin' 10-hour-a-day Twitter guy. You're always on the loop. You're always trading. You've had reps. You've been in the trenches. But like, how does one become a good trader, learn how to develop these theses, and learn how to see forward-looking trends?
I'd say it's a combination of things. So first, for me, I'm a TA trader before anything else. Fundamentals are important, but the timing of everything is based on TA. So I'll say if you're trying to learn technical analysis, I would probably start with, it's called Technical Analysis of Financial Markets by John J. Murphy. And it will cover all the basics you need to know. Just if you have no clue what TA is, just read that book and then you'll have a foundation to build everything else off of. And that's like where you kind of start just with learning how to trade markets. And I'll say from there, like personally, I learned how to trade from Twitter. So when I was on Twitter back in 2017, I was following dudes like Kobe, like Loomdart, like TraderMain, like Bitcoin, Conan Corral, like FS Crypt. I got a ton of really good Twitter traders who were there and sharing how their thought process was for navigating crypto markets and like how TA works, like some of the different strategies that they use there. I would say typically in crypto, you have really, really strong trends. So the way to capitalize on them is either by positioning before these trends happening or getting really good at identifying when the trend is about to shift from like bear to bull or like bull to bear. And you have like consolidation and then you have impulsion. That's the two things the markets do. So either they're going sideways
Going
or
up
they're
and down.
trending up or they're
Yeah.
trending down. It's simplest thing you can know about markets. They only do three things. So in bear markets, when everybody's like screaming, oh my God, crypto's going to zero, blah, 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 it's down 90%, blah, blah, blah. And that's all you're gonna hear on the news if you're just a pure retail, have no idea what you're doing, trader. So during those, like when the sentiment is really, really poor on crypto, that's when you typically have the low volume periods, prices going sideways, and it's just going to stay around the same prices for like several months at a time. So with Bitcoin, this past year we were at what, like I think 17K. FTX we did like 15K, but we were trading in the 17K to like 25K range for several months. And if you have these ranges, you can kind of like bracket them. It's the same thing on alts. You either want to be positioned when that range high breaks out and you want to already have been like dollar cost averaging in, or you want to be able to identify like when that trend is going to shift. Like typically just TA wise, why I tell people you like try either dollar cost average in bear markets when stuff is down 80, 90%, or figure out like have some signal for when the breakout is going to happen. But as far as capital allocation, it depends a little bit on what size kind of you're moving. I would say if you're super small size, you probably want to find some like really high conviction plays and like focus the majority of your portfolio in those, and then try and play a lot of different airdrops. So like I said, with Solana this year, people who played the Jito airdrop, even if they only had like a few Solana, right now they're getting over 5K just from the airdrop, which is crazy. But it was because there was not a ton of people focusing on using the protocol, and then it came out at a pretty decent valuation once people were like, oh, this is a good team on Solana, reflective of their importance to the chain. And you have a ton of that in crypto where it's like farm these airdrops that a lot of people are not looking at. All that VC capital that these companies raise, some of that's going to go to the community, and you want to be a part of the community that's getting that capital. So if you're small size, I would say focus on like whatever your highest conviction plays, and then focus on airdrops. If you're slightly larger size, you kind of want to separate your portfolio into two different things. So you have your long-term bags. For me, that's stuff like Solana, Coinbase stock, Bitcoin. Like I like Prime, Parallel, the game, and just like keep 70% of your portfolio in those. So it's like that I'm trying to buy the bottom, and I'm not really trying to trade in month to month in between. And I'm trying to sell like when I think the cycle is close to ending, and try and like scale out that way. And that's like portfolio. You keep whatever in your hardware wallet, don't really touch it, keep it in a separate place. And then with 30% of your portfolio, you can do all the degens shit. So it's like, I'm trying to hit every rotation. I'm aping micro caps on this chain. I'm farming whatever. I'm like, whatever. You're like doing your perps, all that shit. So it's like 30% of your portfolio, that's the part where you're more active and searching for whatever the flavor of the month type shit. So like when we had the AI pump earlier this year, I did not see any of that coming at all. Like, dude, I saw Chat GPT drop, and I was like, damn, that's kind of cool. But everybody else in crypto was like, now we're buying AI coins. So it's like stuff like FET, like what's another one? Like OLAS, like an AGIX. A ton of these altcoins that were just tangentially related to AI went fucking like 5x plus. And you always want to have some of your portfolio either in cash or like, what if it's in cash, ETH, SOL, whatever. But you want to have some part of your portfolio that's like your ape stack. So it's like whenever you see something new that pops up, and it's like, yo, I'm ready. All right, I got this. I already got this money set aside. I'm not thinking like, oh shit, I gotta sell some of this. Should I sell this? Should I sell this? Because a lot of times when you're in those positions, if you can move like that, like extremely fast before everybody else, you're gonna make way more than people. So if you have a portion of your whatever portfolio set aside to do stuff like that, it's like really advantageous. And also in bull markets, you'll have these leverage wipeouts because everybody who didn't buy the bottom is like, damn, I only got $500. I'm going to use 20x leverage middle of a trend. And then a ton of people do that. Oh, it's working. Stuff's going up. And then you'll get a flash crash of like 20, 30%, wipe out all the longs. And if you're one of the people who has capital aside, you're like, oh, now I can get my entry into something I was looking. Yeah. So like when you look for those like 20, 30% dips. As far as like strategies for doing that. Honestly, last cycle I did a lot of it just on my own, really. So as I said before, I'm on Twitter online all the time. So I have lists of all these different ecosystems, like devs, like traders, that I look at pretty frequently. So I'm pretty in tune with everything that's going on in crypto on a day-to-day basis. And then what I try to do is like journal my thoughts a lot. So I tweeted this, I think yesterday, but I was like, you should have a list of alts for all the different sectors in crypto. And then you should have a general idea of what are the most popular alts out of those different sectors. So it's like, okay, nobody's talking about L2s right now, but I know ARB, OP, base, whatever, other L2s, I know what they are. So it's like when I think attention's about to shift back to L2s, I'm like, okay, I can just buy these. Instead of having to think through like,
yeah,
damn, what do I buy? L2s are pumping. And then you got to go look and do research on all the L2s. But if you already have that and you're already taking notes on those different sectors and like what fundamental catalysts they have coming up, you're more ready to shift your capital around. So I'll say that's generally how I like operate in crypto. It's also good to have a small group of friends that you can bounce stuff off of. And it's really
100%.
easy to find them on Twitter. Even if you don't know anybody, just like be a reply guy. If you don't know anybody in crypto Twitter, during bull markets, you can make a lot of friends simply by being a reply guy. Like there's because all the interactions happen under a lot of the bigger guys' posts. And that used to be me. I would like comment on people's stuff, like start talking to people. And that's how I got like into some group chats just from sharing ideas, and people used to see things the same way I was seeing them. And I see that a lot with people who like comment under my tweets. I'm like, oh, this dude knew what he was talking about the last time he commented. He commented this time, he knows what he's talking about. This time he knows what he's talking about. Let me follow this guy back to see what he's on. Yeah. So it's like in crypto, you can build your reputation really easily by just interacting with people and sharing your ideas in a way that's not really possible in a lot of different areas just generally in life. But because like if you're if you can become an expert on crypto with no background knowledge of anything else just by studying markets and how these cycles work, because it's such a new asset class.
100%. That was a little masterclass. Thank you for that. We are getting a little tight for time. A couple more questions. The Coinbase thesis. I love this. Obviously, this is not an investing advice podcast. Mind you, Z has dropped some absolute fire, but I do have to say that I do own Coinbase as well. And guys, before I ask Z this question, if you guys want exposure and you don't want to open up a crypto wallet, you don't want to open up a Coinbase account, but you own a bank account or you have a trading account, whatever the case may be, Robinhood, whatever, you can get exposure to crypto in a tax-free way. And you can buy Coinbase stock, which I and Z believes that there's still a lot of room for growth, or you can buy any of the Bitcoin mining stocks. You have your Marathon, you have your Hut 8, you have Michael Saylor, the sickest puppy in all of crypto, just stacking Bitcoin with MicroStrategy. There's tons of ways to do this. Z, what are some of your favorites here if people want exposure to crypto without actually buying crypto?
Yeah, Coinbase. I mean, Coinbase is I think far and away the easiest bet that you can make in traditional markets if you're trying to bet on crypto. And it's funny because I think this is what a lot of the boomers are going to do. They're like, I don't want to buy Bitcoin or Ethereum. I don't want to buy crypto. I don't want to have to think through all these different altcoins. Go to CoinGecko and it's like a list of 100 alts. If you don't know crypto, you're like, well, how am I supposed to know which one to buy?
That's scary.
People telling you to buy like Cardano and like all this random shit. So I think a lot of the people who already have stocks, like already have their Fidelity, they got like real estate, got gold, got all that shit. They're like, oh, I want to get exposure to crypto. Coinbase is the obviously biggest company in the US to get exposure to crypto. Like they're the biggest retail trading venue. They're probably going to be the custodian for these Bitcoin ETFs to get approved next year. They also do they have Coinbase Ventures, they have Coinbase Cloud, like they're pretty active in a lot of different parts of the crypto ecosystem. And really, I think it's the left curve, like, oh, I want to get exposure to crypto, I'm going to buy Coinbase. And they've also never had a bull market, which is a really big thing for me. Yeah. It's like the chart has been down since their IPO. So when you have those situations where it's like the general consensus is that, oh, this stock has been down only, crypto's dead, FTX just happened, like whatever, SBF blew up the industry, this isn't coming back, and it's just down and it goes sideways, And then when it starts going up again, you have a ton of people who are like, oh, maybe I'm wrong. I need to get exposure to this. And I think that's going to happen a lot next year if like the BlackRock Bitcoin ETF goes through, which is likely to happen.
Yeah,
All
it's
these
looking good.
people who thought crypto was dead are going to be like, okay, how do I get exposure to crypto? And Coinbase is going to be one of the easiest ways, I think. But also miners are interesting. The companies who mine Bitcoin. And the reason they're interesting this cycle is because a lot of the discourse around Bitcoin's block space the past few years, it's been concerning because there's not a ton of activity with transaction volume, and miners get paid like some of the more activity that's going on chain. So this year we've had ordinals, and ordinals are like when people are, they call them inscriptions, but they're basically similar to NFTs, but they're directly inscribed with the number Satoshi in
Yeah, the
each
block.
block
Yeah.
on Bitcoin. So that's been a ton of like a huge increase in activity that people are paying transaction fees on Bitcoin this year. And I know for a fact, none of these TradFi analysts expected that to happen and are pricing that into any of their models for how much money these Bitcoin miners are going to be making. Because every time the halving happens, Bitcoin miners are going to make more money because the emissions are less than they were previously. So if you have that counterbalanced by all this ordinals activity, it's going to be like, wait, the whole pricing situation for like these companies changes. And that's not, I don't think it's priced in. So stuff like, what's one? Like CLSK,
Yeah, Marathon, HUD 8.
or like Marathon, yeah, MARA,
Yeah.
Riot, those different miners could also do well. And it's probably another way people are going to get exposure without having to buy crypto directly.
And it's tax-free. That's like a huge, you throw that in your IRA, your Roth account for us Canadians, TFSA, the home one as well, RSP, you name it. So Ansem, you've absolutely crushed this, man. Last question. And I know that you tweeted this out a couple days ago. This episode is going to air on Monday the 11th, and we are getting close to that. But Monday the 12th, Monday the 11th, you and DFK, that was one of your biggest takes back in the day.
Baby, bro.
Jewel, that was one of your big takes. I remember the heydays. I would wake up in the morning, literally before I would take a pee or wash my face or even do anything, I would whip open the phone and I would check the price and I'd be like, I just made $500 today. I was making $500 a day doing nothing. You were probably making like $5K a day. You're back on it. Do we have room to grow here? Is it going to get back to the highs? And folks, for the listeners at home, if you've seen the chart, it literally ripped, came all the way down, and it has been sideways until this guy tweeted about it 2 days ago and we got legs again. Last take, and then we're off the pod. What's happening with Jewel?
Dude, so bro, I used to love Jewel. So DeFi Kingdoms was one of my favorite trades last cycle, bro, because it launched in like it was August or September of 2021. And at the time, I was one of the guys bridging to every single chain. I was bridging literally AVAX, whatever, Harmony, like Solana, like any chain that had new stuff launching on it, I was there. Like one of the first people there. That was like the meta, like bridge to whatever L1, test out all the new shit, like be the first one there.
Snag an airdrop.
And DFK was the first DEX that had fucking music and a game. And I was like, what the fuck? This shit was like, dude, I'm testing out it's like every other DEX is just a Uniswap fork. Every single other DEX, pure Uniswap fork. Same UI, same whatever. I'm like, okay, fuck it, I'll buy the DEX coin, buy the chain coin. And then I bridge to Harmony and I'm looking at DFK and there's like, I'm reading through the docs and there's whatever, like all the different hero types, all the different classes, like the different skills that they do. And I used to be a big World of Warcraft guy. Like back in the day, I played World of Warcraft, I played League of Legends. I was a computer nerd. I used to play all the video games. And I never found anything crypto that was like, damn, I would play this. Like I would look at this. And I'm reading through the docs. I'm like, this is something that is like at least different from everything else that exists in crypto. And people like laughed at me a lot back when I said it. When I was like, dude, like in my head. But that's the first thing that happened in my head. I was like, World of Warcraft, the different heroes, different classes, different skills. Because, you used to have whatever, herbalism, blacksmithing, what the other tailoring, all that shit in World of Warcraft. I'm like, dude, this is the same shit. Just with NFTs. So I was hyped. I was like, dude, I'm like, I threw some extra cash at it. And the way the unlock schedule worked, it was like, a ton of it is locked on the back end. But if you throw money in the LPs early, your APR is extremely high. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm like, it's gonna be locked for a while, but they're incentivizing users in a like really good way. So I'm like, if people are gonna bridge over to here, and then it's like the game is decent, it's just gonna rip.
100%.
So I like minted the Gen Zeros when they dropped. I was like one of the first people in all the LP pools. I shared it in a Discord. I still have the screenshot of it. I was like, bro, I just found the craziest APR on this game on Harmony. And people were like, fucking Harmony? Nobody's going to fucking Harmony. Nobody's bridging to Harmony. And then it was right around the time the market also topped. So it happened in September. I was farming it all September, October. And then in November, I was like, damn, market looks like it's topping. So I started telling people like, yo, I'm going in the stables. I'm going cash. I think market's top. But I'm looking at DFK and it doesn't trade on any centralized exchanges. It's purely on a DEX. And I'm still farming it. And I'm still playing with all these fucking heroes that I'm buying and fucking summoning new heroes, like whatever, leveling them up and shit. So I was like, I'm just gonna play DFK because if there's purely trading on a DEX, there's no perps or anything. It's a new launch. So if attention keeps increasing and going in that direction, the coin can keep going up even while other stuff is going down because it's still small. It's like it's not that big of a market cap. And that was my whole thesis for why I thought it was going to continue to do well.
What about present day? Do we got some legs on this or what?
Yeah. So back then it was super inflationary. Inflation was extremely high. The APR was how they incentivized all the LPs. And like that's like one of the reasons that it crashed so hard is because it was super inflationary and it also went straight up. So it was like a parabola breaking plus all the inflationary rewards hitting at the same time. People like took profit a lot. So right now, Jewel it's not on Harmony anymore. It's on Clayton, which is the main chain. And then it's also on an AVAX subnet. So there's 2 different realms and there's 3 tokens. But Jewel is no longer inflationary. They burned all of the locked Jewel, like most of it, and converted that into Crystal and Jade. And then that's unlocking now. But Jewel is purely deflationary. So you spend it in game. It's the gas token on on the AVAX subnet, its own subnet. And basically you need to spend it to do a lot of the things in game. So now it's deflationary, whereas before it was inflationary. And they also have implemented all of the combat systems, the PvP, PvE, all of that didn't exist back in the early stage of the game. They've been building it out this entire time. So now you actually have a game that people can play rather than just summoning heroes and doing the quest. It's actually like PvP versus other people, and you have a deflationary coin instead of inflationary. So I don't know if it's gonna go back to all-time high, but there is absolutely no way I wasn't at least getting some of it just because of like how much I was on it early on. So
100%.
I mean, I think it's a decent spot. It just broke out. It just broke out of its range. It's been sideways for like a year. And then
I gotta go check it out. I haven't checked since I want to say probably April or March of 2022. Like legit, yeah. I haven't checked in a hot minute. Z, on fire. Really appreciate your time, dude. This has been an absolute treat. One last question before you go. When my Dolphins and your Eagles meet in the Super Bowl and we absolutely trounce you guys and Tua throws for 550, Tyreek has 220 yards, Mostert is running all over you. How are you going to feel? How shitty are you going to feel?
Bro, we got to go to the game. We should go to Vegas, dude. It's in Vegas this year.
Yeah. I mean, you guys might be there. I'm not going to be there. I can't see the Finns getting through. Our defense is too weak. I don't think we have the legs. I don't know if we can beat the Chiefs. In our conference, really, my only worry is the Chiefs. I don't think we got to worry about anybody else. But you guys, you got a couple wagons in that conference. San Fran just beat you like
bro, they smacked us, bro. Smacked us.
That was bad. You were at that game too, right?
I was. I was at the game. I was mad as fuck.
Give me last question prediction. You guys gonna win it or what? Who's gonna win the Super Bowl?
Eagles, bro. I think it's gonna be Eagles 49ers in the NFC Championship. I think the Cowboys are gonna lose first round. Eagles in the Super Bowl. I think we're gonna play the Ravens.
Lamar, eh?
Ravens.
I love it.
Ravens.
Z, appreciate you, bro. Great pod. Really appreciate this, and hopefully we'll have you on for round 2 in the near future. Before you go, even though everyone already knows, but you got to plug yourself. Where can our listeners find you on Twitter? I'm
BLKNOIZ06 on Twitter. And then my other account is CONZIMP. So that's me on Twitter.
Love it. Folks, what an episode. The one and only Zion, aka Ansem, aka BLK Noise, coming on the show, dropping knowledge bombs left, right, and center. Super pumped to have him on and always appreciate his time. Folks, if you guys enjoyed this one, and I hope you did, please do subscribe. It would mean the world to my team and I. Speaking of the team, love you guys so much. Thank you for everything. Eustace, my amazing sound editor, you are the GOAT. Appreciate you, my man. And back to the listeners, love you guys. Keep on growing those bags and keep on staying healthy, wealthy, and happy. Bye for now, and we'll talk soon.